first on the agenda.
Oh, I am. This project. So good evening. So tonight on this agenda item is the Sherwood West Brookman Alternative Crossing Study. And before I turn it over to Carl Springer from DKS, who's with us tonight, I want to give some background and some context about this project. So during the Brookman refinement project, council identified studying a connection between Brookman and Sherwood West. But at that time, the Sherwood West project hadn't kicked off. The Sherwood West project has now kicked off, and staff realized this was a priority for council, so we kind of wanted to take a big look at different crossing alternatives in this area. So this is that first look. So Carl from DKS is with us tonight. He's going to walk us through each of the 4 alternatives. He's going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages, and we hope to hear lots of questions from all of you this evening that you might have. And really, there are a lot of moving parts to this project. So as you know, we're right in the middle of the Sherwood West project, and we're going to be looking at the transportation system for that project later this fall when we come to a draft map kind of that the CAC kind of agrees on, and that could be 1 or 2 maps. And so when we do that that transportation analysis at that time, we'll kind of fold into possibly a crossing based on this conversation that we're having tonight. So with that, I'm just gonna turn it over to Carl, and we didn't prepare a presentation. We're just trying to keep it very simple.
Awesome.
Evening, I'm Carl Springer with DKS Associates. I'm a principal in that office and I do planning for locally. So done a lot of work here in Sherwood. I'm actually involved in the Sherwood West plan. So when we get around to transportation thinking there in a more specific way, I'll be involved in that as well. So I assume you all have this memo that Erica handed out. If not, we're just going to kind of walk through it briefly. And again, the purpose of tonight is really to gather your questions about what makes sense and what more you'd like to see us do. We're basically reviewing 4 alternatives of how to connect both sides of the highway to the highway or across the highway. So we'll start with a simple one, which is alternative 1, which is what is representative of the current plans on both sides of the highway. So it's the existing. I think the easiest place to look at would be on page 4. If you're following along on paper, flip to page 4, there's a figure named figure 3. So this shows Brookman where it is today, with some improvements. That's what the short dotted line tells you. On the west side of it, there's the preliminary plans they've done for Sherwood West. There's some kind of north-south collector street there toward the edge. Where that is exactly, we're not sure yet. How the alignment goes, we're not sure yet, but it's basically that connection would come down to Chapman and then bring you over to the highway. So that's still the basic framework. You would have because of the development on both sides of the highway, it's fully expected there you'd have to upgrade traffic control at Brookman, Chapman in 99 to some way, shape, or form. So far, we're assuming it'd be a traffic signal. What I'd always like to consider a roundabout, but we kind of think it's a traffic signal so far. So the other component to bring your attention is the new connection coming out of the Brookman addition. So you see kind of a dashed line going through there connecting to the highway. I should caution you, what that means is not a full-on new street where it connects to the highway. It wouldn't likely be signalized. It would likely be restricted in some way. So the way all those little arrows that are shown there, what that means is you can turn right in and right out at that location. You could probably make a left in, but you're not going to be able to make a left out. But I will allow that closely spaced to another signal for safety reasons. That's what our expectation is. So what's positive about this scheme in terms of right-of-way impacts, costs, what's consistent with the current plans, environmental impacts. It has the minimum footprint. It has easily the lowest top shop option of all the other ones we're going to look at here in a second. we haven't yet evaluated the performance side of it. We'll do that later as these plans evolve. We'll say, okay, is this gonna have enough carrying capacity to do what we want to do? We don't quite know that yet. We expect it will. Get based on the kind of densities I've seen in the plan so far, I think we'll be okay, but we'll confirm that later on in the process. Let me just pause there for a second. I've been talking long enough for a second, so I want to pause and ask any questions you all have. Anything you need clarification, because I'm pointing to a piece of paper on a table. Usually I'm pointing to a screen, right? So it might be a little confusing if you don't catch what I'm throwing. Any questions around the table or on the screen?
So just a question. Disadvantages, low traffic crossing for the 99 West State, which intersection are you talking about there? Or alternative?
Turn the page.
On page
There's two
3?
intersections.
On page 3, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
That what you're referring to is a traffic light intersection?
Where are you referring to on the page? Travis?
Well, if you look at page 3 under disadvantage, you say local traffic, or sorry, there's a look, where was it?
Local traffic crosses.
Local traffic crosses Oregon 99 at grade, and so
I'm sorry, I thought,
you're wondering why that's a disadvantage? Is that what you're wondering?
yes.
Well, that means that anybody who wants to go one side of the highway or the other, they're gonna have to do it at grade through a signal of some sort. Yeah, one of the notions that I understood coming into this process is you're looking for a way to better connect both sides of the highway.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm not.
And so
I'm just trying to
we're just
understand.
recognizing that as you basically have status quo with all the other signals up and down the highway. It'd be the same kind of a setup under that. So if you're desiring better connectivity, making it more attractive for people to get across the highway without having to navigate a big highway, big fast highway, even at a traffic signal, it can be a little bit intimidating. That's why we recognize that as a disadvantage. Because all the other options we'll look at have some kind of grade separation piece to it.
Good.
Any other questions? Did I confuse you about the write-in, write-out thing? I don't know how many write-in, write-out things you have around town, but you might have a few. It's really a safety kind of a thing. The most dangerous move to make on a high-speed highway is a left out from the side street. So they try to restrict those in those cases where there's not traffic control around or something. I think that's safer. So far, so good. We'll go on to the next one. All right. So the next one, really, the big difference is an overcrossing. So there's a picture on page 5. This is not what we're proposing, but this is a picture of an overcrossing on 217. Basically, the point is it's an overcrossing with no ramps, no connection to the highway. It's just your way to get from one side of the highway to the other without messing with the highway.
Yeah, you're connecting neighborhoods, you're connecting business areas.
Yes. So it's
and
open to cars, trucks, walking, biking, whatever you want, but it's not a way to get to and from the highway. It's to get one side of the community to the other side.
And we really think that's 15 to 20 million.
Yes, they're surprisingly expensive.
Well, no,
Oh, you think it's too low?
our pedestrian bridge is almost 15, so.
I know, but it's,
pull it your back.
Yeah.
the thing is, it would be similar style deal. I mean, it's gonna be a little bit bigger, the span's gonna be similar, right? So I think that's, because we're only thinking it's gonna be a 2-lane bridge anyway, right? It's a narrow bridge, it's not gonna be a big bridge. But yeah, because of the width of the highway in this stretch of the city, it's a big investment to do any kind of overcrossing, frankly. Right, and you're noticing that with Bedbridge, but by the way, congratulations on that, I'm glad that actually is coming to fruition. I've been around long enough to remember when that was the beginning, that was an idea that somebody said.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference between the two, and unlike this picture where you have the advantage of grade difference, you don't have the advantage of grade difference, I don't think, where we're looking at so much.
No.
So that means you gotta ramp up on both sides and go up and over, and it'll be a very visible piece of the community as you're coming through
I
there.
think it goes uphill to the northwest. If I remember right.
There's a slight grade.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not very much.
Right, because you need like 15, 16 feet of clearance from the bottom of the bridge, so.
Yeah.
You gotta get up there. and put it in.
I mean, this is one of my more appealing options. Looking at it from a bigger picture point of view, is how do we move traffic from there into the old town area? You know, because it's all gonna filter through neighborhoods at this point.
Right, so we tried to sketch that out on figure 5, which is on page 6. So that's showing a connection through the Brookman addition over the overcrossing. Yes, there'll be a curve, it won't be jiggity lines like that. And some sort of,
I'm sorry, Councilor Young, or Councilor.
I'm sorry, a question online?
Yeah, I've got a question just on this number 2. So on the current layout, the alternative 1, we've got the right in, right out thing. What, we have nothing like that on alternative 2. There isn't any way to go south on 99W from Brookman in this scenario.
No, it still has a full intersection at Brookman.
Yeah, you're retaining the full intersection at Brookman, but you're
I
also
see.
adding the overcrossing.
That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah, we're not shutting off your access to the highway. That would be,
No.
that'd be a tough, that'd be a tough
sell.
option.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the big difference, is you're giving folks that want to go from one side of the community to the other a way to do so without navigating across the highway. You get the scenic view over the top.
Yeah, and take traffic off the intersection.
It will lighten the demand at the intersection, yes, it will. Yeah, for sure.
So, I don't know, if you were again to me, once the pedestrian bridge is built, where is that in relation to this number 2 proposal?
Up at Sunset, how far away is it? Is that your question? Yeah, I'm not good at guessing those distances.
Probably another inch and a half.
Yeah.
Probably half.
I want to say like a quarter, probably like a little less than a quarter of a mile.
You think it's that close?
Yeah, I think it's pretty close because
Okay.
there's the Goose Creek and then like Sunset Kruger intersection.
Yes, the St. Kruger's
right
not that far away. It's on,
Yeah.
is it on the north side across that intersection?
Yes.
Because the school's relatively close.
Right.
Yeah,
It's not far.
It's pretty close.
That's what I was thinking, it's pretty close. So we could potentially have 2 crossings.
2 crossings, not too far apart.
Thank you.
One
It's
thing,
1.1 miles
From what I thought.
yeah, that's what I would.
from Brookman to Sunset. So in less quarter mile.
Thank you.
That's actually a pretty good spacing for those kinds of things. You know, we would like to see that kind of spacing through a lot of communities. Give pedestrians a way to get around without having to go through. Full-on interchanges are tough sledding for a lot of people on bikes. That's for sure.
I have another, yeah, one more question. Councilor Garland mentioned the intersection currently at Brookman. Isn't the current intersection a right turn only? And there's there's that weird
Yeah.
cement divider that makes it so you can only go right, and I see people go around it every single time I'm there.
Yeah, we lovingly call those pork chops, but yeah, our assumption is that over time, as development happens, it'll be upgraded to a full-on intersection, you know, with traffic controls, traffic signal control, and the pork chop will be taken away. All those turn restrictions will be removed at that time. That would be the natural progression. That's what often happens. Again, I mean, the reason NODOT's doing that is for safety reasons, because it has a lot of crashes out there, left turns coming out, and cars are going 60 on the highway. They just can't react fast enough. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I understand why they do it. It's just, it's the absolute wrong behavior, because now everybody tries to get around it, which feels more dangerous.
Yeah, I don't
Anyway.
disagree with that. Yeah, people can be clever and dangerous at the same time. One thing I should point out on this diagram that you guys didn't ask about, which I'm a little surprised, is this east-west connector from the highway to the Brookman side, it stops at the old Highway 99 and doesn't continue directly down to Brookman. That's because of the railroad. You don't mess with the railroad. If you've been on council long enough, you know there's some very serious problems.
Oh, come on.
Any kind of new railroad crossing, I think your next horn is involved in part of the partnering.
I appreciate that. I didn't go in that perspective in the whole next born, but yes.
I shouldn't joke about that. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough sledding to get a new crossing. They have high stakes to make that happen. So our assumption has been that that would not be a part of this kind of a configuration like this. And so you wouldn't have, so naturally anybody coming down, westbound on Brookman would have to go kind of a zigzag move to come up Old Highway 99 and go across the overcrossing there. But because that's not like a highway access route, that might be an okay way to do it, right? So this would be just the people that are trying to cross the highway and want an option isn't the accurate.
So I'm just, if I could play devil's advocate for a
Okay,
second.
Devil, how's it going?
Yeah. I agree with you. The railroads are horrible to deal with. There's way too much lobbying power at the federal and state level.
Strict legal power.
Well, because of their lobbies, yes.
Because the law is going back.
We're saying the same thing. But things, I mean, occasionally you'll see railroads give up track for like trails or stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, and there's multiple bridges that are weight limited, you have fire damages as you go through the canyon there. So with that in mind, that things might change, is there any reason we wouldn't plan for a connector there, knowing it might be a long ways out, so we reserve the right of way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, that sounds like you, but.
And then the challenges with railroad crossings, we got the, well, if it doesn't become a railroad anymore, that's a different deal, but.
I'm just, on that off chance, at least we have the right of way reserved, that's all I'm asking.
It's a fair question.
Yeah, and that's something we could definitely look at.
Okay, let's flip on.
And then we don't really touch upon here, or we don't think we have to, but alternative to, but the notion of improving that railroad crossing of Brookman. Well, do we need to assume that they're gonna make us straighten the crossing point? Because right now it's at a pretty bad angle.
So yes, so in the Brookman refinement plan, we talked about, we've actually sketched out kind of that preliminary concept
On
for
the hook.
what it would look like at an at-grade crossing right there. And we also provided the cost estimate in that refinement plan too.
Yeah, probably only like 5 million.
It's less than that.
Say on that section of the triangle there between, sorry, it's a quick question. What exists currently between 99W and Brookman on that little angle of the triangle where the crossing, is that houses there? Are there residences there, or is that, I'm not sure what exists there today. Would we be adding a significant amount of traffic in front of people's driveways?
On the east side of 99 or the west side of 99?
In looking, yeah, east side, yeah. So where the bridge comes over and it says there New West Sub Area Road, and it crosses whatever that kind of rectangle is as it intersects at Old 99W. And then if I'm reading this correct, Old 99W kind of heads southwest and intersects at Brookman in kind of that peak of the triangle there.
Right.
What on that leg from the dotted line southwest to Brookman, what exists along that portion of the road today?
It looks like farmland
Farm.
and a couple scattered houses.
Thanks.
We ready to move on?
And not the cemetery, which is the thing I was concerned about.
It's another tough one.
All right, did we ever get any validation from the gas company about that intersection?
So I talked to the gas company this weekend. But what you learned,
Well, when we did the refinement plan, we had talked about shifting that section of Brookman Road to the north a little bit to not impact
Gotcha.
the gas facility.
And Nina from Northwest Natural, I talked to her this weekend, said, we give her enough years of notice in advance, they'll move stuff. Which-
Let's put them on notice.
Exactly. Okay, can I record this now? They did that on Shoals Ferry,
That's,
and the only condition that they asked for, A, was they needed the time, and then that those projects all would have gas to those homes.
mhm.
That was it. There might be a little bit more of a nuance,
Probably.
million here, million there.
I think going back to my original comment, I think I like this one, but my only concern is long-term. Once Sherwood West is built out, it's gonna put a lot of traffic past Middleton to those neighborhoods on Sunset.
Okay.
Because there's, given the problem with the traffic or the railroad tracks that you talked about, there's only so many places to get from Brookman to that part of town.
Right. Okay.
Understand it right. South. We're gonna have to cut back up through, get back out in Sunset.
Exactly.
No. And when, by the time you go this, there'll be a full-on intersection.
They're having to do that today is.
Yeah, right now you can't, but no, in 10 years, it'll be a full-on intersection.
Yeah.
Or roundabout.
In theory, roundabout, but yeah,
But I'm thinking of all those people in Sherwood West who are avoiding 99.
you make it a big.
ODOT just puts it on the list of possibles.
Oh my gosh.
It's just part of their process that they go through and confirm that that's okay. So,
Where is,
ODOT might also change the speed limit on Highway 99 to, 30.
that just reminds me that back home in Indiana, it's like something like that, it's like a big old mess. Can't even imagine.
yeah, I would think at those speeds it'd be much larger
Oh
than
my
what
word.
Yeah.
you've seen in town.
Yeah, can't even,
It's pretty common in Europe, but they're football field size.
Mhm.
They're
it's,
big. Anyway, I don't want to put that in your mind, sorry.
no. Remove it, please.
Okay, so the next two alternatives are two styles of interchanges. And so we just sketched out what I call a diamond interchange. That's alternative 3, that's in figure 6 on page 8. And what's interesting about this, well, there's lots of things interesting about this. Number one, if and when that were to go into place, you lose the connectivity you have today at Brookman Chapman. All those connections would be gone, right? 'Cause you can see the ramps go right across there, so there'd be no connectivity down there at all. That would be replaced. 2, you would still have the connection across the highway, because that's part of the notion of an interchange, you're gonna have a great separated bridge there, but in this case, unlike the last one, we're gonna have ramps that connect to that crossing. So you will be able to exit the highway there and get off, just like a typical interchange on, say, 217. Be that kind of a style of interchange. What's also noticeable about this is the size of its footprint actually extends off the graphic on both sides, so. And that's why the cost is the next tier up, $30 to $50 million kind of a deal. Which is really a big, in my experience, doing these kind of concept planning around the metro area. It's a big ask for this part of the world, given the scale of development you're looking at. It's a big expense to introduce in terms of infrastructure funding for road construction.
So a question on that. Why couldn't you do something more like what they did at South Wilsonville, where it's go under, and so the on-ramps and off-ramps are something tight with lights at the bottom?
Okay, South Wilsonville.
Right as you're coming north, you go over the Willamette, it's that first intersection.
Oh, yeah, there's different shapes of interchanges you could consider, so I forget what the name to it, and I forgot the name of it already.
It just seems a lot more efficient in terms of land use.
It is, and you'd be surprised as far as the ramp footprint, it's not very different. They curl in at the end of it, so that where, this is a, I don't know, diamond shape do it, the ramp departure would still be the same on the highway. They still take the same amount of land, and instead of having one intersection on either side of the highway, there'd be one intersection underneath. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it'd still be an intersection on both sides.
Okay.
It's just, I was just wondering if it narrows it up a little bit.
I don't think it would make enough difference that it's gonna change the cost.
Yeah. It might be more for alternative 4.
Right, alternative 4 is just a different shape to consider. And again, these are all just concepts, and we're not recommending one versus the other. That would all be looked at if we're detailed. But concept 4 is a partial clover leaf. And so you've got loop ramps shown there, and you can see the ramp footprint gets far wider because you have to provide a decent radius there on those ramps. And even those radiuses aren't great. If I were a truck, I would not be happy about the radius that's sketched out here. But you get the idea that the footprint's significantly bigger. What's that?
Wow.
We don't want to discourage. We want to try to design the highways so people don't wreck their trucks. Can't control that, unfortunately. It's a public highway, so they're gonna use.
Are we doing it that way because we don't want to have any hinge on the road? So we're trying to keep it.
That's a fair point. That's exactly what we did because of, isn't that your?
The transportation rule.
Isn't that your UGB line?
Yep.
Yeah. That has been, yeah, that's the
Some great
no-fly zone.
stuff about
The
it.
no-fly zone south of there. You can't. The rule basically says you can't do capacity improvements outside the UGB to support growth inside the UGB, basically. So
Even though,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
you can get exceptions in rare cases, but I don't
Which is
think.
why you think there's a decent chance on option 3 of getting a little bit of one.
Yeah, that's less heinous than option, oh, heinous is a strong word, sorry. It's my word today. This has the biggest impact. It takes away a big chunk of that, southern district of Sherwood West for sure.
well, and that was what,
But as far as, the other point is the functionality of it. The functionality of it isn't much different than any of the other ones. Well, let's see, they have this connection shown here on the east side, which I'm not sure that's accurate. You're not gonna get direct access onto it.
That's true.
So
Oh, so that's New West Sabera.
they would have to go down and access off of Brookman
Brookman.
Road.
Mm-hmm.
There would not be that little dashed line that's shown there.
Yeah.
Where, in all the other figures it's there, but this one, I don't think that.
Is there in the number 3? Oh, yeah, it's smaller.
Yeah, we have a number 3.
All right.
So this is, that's kind of the gambit, and then at the end, we just show kind of all the trade-offs, how we, as I started off, alternative 1, which is basically staying consistent with the current plan. The least impact. 2 is a bit more impact than 3 and 4 are the greatest impact and the greatest cost. But, given your objective of providing better connectivity on either side of the highway, sounds like 2 might be a trade-off worth considering, but I'll leave it for you all thinking. So the thing is, I want to hear any questions that we didn't tackle or, some version of this that would be insightful for you all, because we just kind of took pretty standard progression between accurate intersections, crossing with no ramps, and then interchanges with 2 styles of it.
how much traffic analysis did you do on this?
Only what's in my head. We haven't done the analysis yet because the plans haven't evolved far enough for us to actually do a detailed analysis, but I can tell you as a guy who's done this for a long time, these are functionally okay. We can do some version of this and make all of them work.
Yeah, I'm thinking, again, longer term, I'm looking what the CAC for Sherwood West is doing in terms of lightening the load on Bellward, creating another north, south, east, west, depending on the perspective connector to get people from Yankton County to Washington County, a lot of centers over there. So as we refine this, we'll definitely want to look at those traffic patterns.
Oh, we definitely will. I mean, that's ahead of us yet on the Sherwood West piece, is to do that kind of a detailed transportation analysis. I mean, anytime you're gonna make this kind of investment, you have to do that.
Yeah.
You have to prove that it's gonna do what you expect it to do, because you've gotta convince ODOT to be a partner in this and spend some money, and they are not gonna step up to the table without their confidence. So we'll definitely do that.
Taylor, did you have another question?
Yeah, I had a little trouble hearing about the traffic circle. I would vote for traffic circles all day if it was within our control, but did I hear something about putting a large traffic circle there with the speeds we need is not in our control? That would be a county decision or an ODOT decision?
Well, it would be in the European scale, which might be the size of a football field or greater.
Yeah, I was referring to the highway, not to any of the local streets, if that helps.
And I think
Right.
it's just ODOT reserving the right, not
It's a
necessarily.
part of their procedure. When you look at an accurate intersection looking to upgrade it, you have to kind of trade off which one makes the most sense. It wasn't that long ago where they wouldn't even entertain roundabouts on ODOT facilities. Seriously. 20 years.
It's right, but so my point is, the width of that road right now is not that much different from football field. So even if we were to make it double the size, if traffic were to flow smoothly, I would be for that, because I've been in cities that are all roundabouts and they were fantastic. And so I'm a big fan of them. But if it's totally, to help me understand what's needed for us to do that, they would have to do a study and then have to come back and say, hey, we want to put a roundabout there. Or if we say we want a roundabout, they'll weigh that heavier or what?
I don't want to run about there. Just my opinion.
Well, yeah, I'm not ready to vote on roundabout or not roundabout, but I can tell you that going forward, we will do an analysis. We can talk about the kind of the feasibility of one or the other. We can give you recommendation about which one works as feasible. It'll be up to the city to take a position on that later in the process. And it always is valuable for the city to take a strong preference for the ODOT to consider something different than what they would normally do. Doesn't mean you're gonna convince them or they're gonna do something different, but it's valuable. So, there's no sure thing in this path to getting around about, because it's on a state facility. They take all the legal risks. They're gonna spend most of the money, so they're gonna have the final say.
Well, and part of what we're doing here is we're really putting some conceptual stakes in the ground, right? That we're going to use as we go into planning and work with ODOT and Washington County in the future. Because we have real cut through problems, they're just gonna get bigger over time. When we
Sure.
start solving this.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
I mean, if we were to vote, with what we know today, which is it's just a little sliver of stuff, it's too all day, but.
Okay, support for two.
And then, yeah, it gives an alternative local connection for people, because depending upon what the future north-south Sherwood collector does, and it's designed to be, it could attract some cut-through people. And that would be all on the Brookman 99 intersection, part of it.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're seeing that, yeah. Every one of our crossings on 99, it's the fight between, community members trying to get, across the street to see a friend or shop someplace. And you're competing against the million travelers per day or whatever it is.
Million would be high, but it's a lot.
But
Yeah,
it's a
probably
lot.
a lot. Yeah, the guys that are calling their phones.
Hey, I got one more question.
Sure.
If you were to do an overpass of like the number 2, is it possible to add on ramps and off ramps after for whatever the additional cost is, or does that have to be done at the beginning?
Well,
Like if in 10 years you wanted to add on ramps or off ramps, you know what I mean? Can we add them later, or is it Just replace the whole thing.
In theory, you could do it in phases, but you'd have to design the bridge to be ready for the ramps at some point. Yeah, and so in theory, it can be done. I don't know that I've ever seen it done that way, to be honest. I think there's some cost efficiencies to building it all at once. Come back and backfill. I don't know that I've seen it done, but it's possible. Certainly from a construction point of view, you could do that.
Well, there might be another solution to that. If we're trying to solve for getting people out of 99 in the town, you know, you can do something with Brookman, there's others, potential solutions for that down the road as well.
Right. Yeah, I can say as a guy who does a lot of studies in Washington County, everybody gets excited about cut through traffic, especially in this part of the world. We have neighbors to the north say the same thing.
Well, we have this big funnel called 99,
Yes,
and so it all gets kind of funneled right into Sherwood. And then
Sure.
Sherwood reaching out point.
yeah, it's a big thing, and it's tough. It's a tough one to deal with, that's for sure.
Do you have any questions? Randy, do you have any more questions?
I'm just trying to visualize this bridge, or at the bridge with this overpass, and then the bridge after that.
And is the idea of the, alternative to it being an underpass versus an over crazy?
I think we looked at the terrain issue. I don't know.
But as things continue to evolve, that could be an element to say, does that make?
Certainly, you can look at kind of
But
the
it probably
cost
adds a lot of cost to it.
benefit of it. If there'd be excavation involved, I would assume there would be some excavation to make that happen.
Yeah, I recognize the need and how that would improve things, but I'm just trying to visualize both of them together.
The bridge and the pedestrian bridge?
So it's similar in a different scale, but in North Wilsonville intersection by Costco is a traffic, blah, 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 and then north, it's about a mile, is just a dedicated bridge crossing, road crossing, Norwood or something like that.
Morwood,
Norwood, so it's sort of similar, but
Okay.
a mile over.
it's
Miles come a long ways even on the freeway.
I'm not sure the exact.
It just seems so close here, but yeah, I'll go check that
I
out.
think with the grade, I don't even think you can see the second one from. Because it kind of goes uphill there, and you crest the hill right as you get to Sunset, and where it's down.
So either direction.
You're right, I don't think
you'll
it
be able to
is.
see one. But that's just my guess.
Awesome,
All right.
appreciate your
Thank you.
Glad to help.
nod on that and unfolding, this as part of it further vet out Sherwood West.
Right.
Because like I said, we definitely kind of put a kibosh or freeze on the west side of the Brookman area until we kind of get this sorted out.
Right.
Because we don't want to remove our options.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the options, for sure.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add is we can continue to do this, and I'm sure you're already thinking about it, but I'll say it out loud, is
Okay,
is the whole challenge of getting people from Brookman into Sherwood, right? And because of railroad tracks and railroad crossings and
right.
what impacts. If I was living over here, this area, I'm looking at page 6 for those on the phone where that Sherwood West circle is. I'm gonna cross over there so I can avoid 99, and then I'm gonna drive up past our middle school and down that narrow street in Sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do we manage that going forward?
Okay. Good questions.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
So,
Yeah, I'll take that.
Thanks, Carl.
Who's the name of it?
Awesome. You have a good one.
You too.
not around that great.
I'll let you visualize.
Yeah, me too.
I just need to see the bridges.
6,
Yeah.
7,
Before, get you off.
6, 2. Sorry.
He's on vacation.
Oh, yeah, nice break.
We have another
What happened?
session.
Oh, we have another work session?
Both of them.
Oh, goal setting.
It's not important, Tim, clearly.
Just focus on Hannah's presentation.
It's probably the word of the day. Thanks. You need what? Oh, good.
Throwing things in the council.
Lots of Wednesday.
Taylor and Sean, just go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions as we go along. We'll try to make sure we look over. Sean Lee.
Sean, are you on there?
No, I am here. Yeah, sorry, I just turned off my video.
I didn't see your picture, so you're.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. I'm gonna have my camera off. I'm trying to eat some dinner.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just raise your hand or speak out if you have any questions.
Yeah, perfect. I'll make some noise. Thanks.
I will too.
Thanks, everyone. Just wanted to do an update on council goals. I know this is a little early considering we're just about 6 weeks into the fiscal year, but the goal really was to start to have a conversation of how we share this information, how we can effectively communicate, how we can provide meaningful updates as we go along. So this was a framework we're starting to create. Thought it'd be a good time just to kind of put forward, looking for questions, comments, feedback, suggestions on how we kind of do this. Craig isn't here, but I do want to give him credit. I basically stole this concept idea from something else that he's been working on. So he looks at this, he's going to say, wait a minute. So basically, quick recap. With our council goals that are adopted, we created 6 pillars. 6 pillars are listed on the screen right now. Under each of those pillars are goals, and under each of those goals are deliverables. Deliverables are what we're working on as a staff. So I'm going to talk about that. In terms of status, to keep it simple, we did a little brief notes update, and then also just a color coordination. Just sort of say green meaning completed it, yellow meaning we started, white means it hasn't yet started. So
We're 6 weeks into the year. There's some white.
there's a little bit of white. So pillar 1 is economic development. Under 1.1 here, just to kind of help with how I thought this through. This is in bold because this isn't really a deliverable per se. So under that, we have 2 deliverables, A and B. Code audit for stakeholders, which we're going to start early next year, 2023, after the economic opportunities work that we're going to do, analysis, and then process amendments 1B, which will be in the deliverable timeframe. The council actually said in 2 or 3 years, but again, we'll sort of follow kind of the natural work we're doing. Great annexation policies and processes to manage growth and goals. We anticipate a draft annexation plan for the community, the Taunton, Sherwood West, late winter 2023 after the Sherwood West redevelopment. So there is work sort of being done on that. 2022.
Yep, no, sorry, that's all good, but why do we say Tompkin there?
I don't know why we say Taunton there. That's a good question. All right. Yeah. Shouldn't say Taunton. Pillar 2 of infrastructure, develop code for promote stronger economic development. This is a project we haven't yet started. 2.2 is a pedestrian bridge. Again, that's broken out into 2 different areas, 2A and 2B. So 2A is the 100% design. We completed 30% design on 6/20 and transition work to the 100%. We expect to be the 100% to be done early 2023. After that, being constructions.
I apologize, back on pillar 1.
Yeah.
On the annexation policies. Have we taken a look at, is there anything we need to do in the short term to get ahead of things on that?
So in the short term, in our comp plan, we do have some annexation policies that folks would have to address through their application process. And what I really truly envision is bolstering those policies that we already have for the next phase.
And the reason I ask that is I wouldn't be surprised if there's lobbying efforts in Salem to make it easier for annexations. And, given that the UGB ask is now kind of a throttle for the annexation process. So I'm just thinking out loud here, that are there things that we need to do sooner than later, anticipating what Salem might be up to on this subject? Sorry.
No, it's okay. Pillar 2, again, under infrastructure, Cedar Creek pedestrian tunnel. So again, bolded because these are actually subsections. So 2A is,
So sorry, go back one more page. I wasn't done.
oh yeah,
So 100%, early 23, what's early 23 mean? And purely by definition, that means before June.
we're looking about February or March of 2023 would be a time frame.
We're gonna be construction by then.
So we've pushed a couple months.
It's kind of where it's looking right now. We can have some conversations. We're still in working on the design of this. And still, there's a draft on the proposal, so we'll have more information for sure.
If there are options that could speed it up, and I know you guys are working on this, and that's not where I'm going here, in terms of additional resources, those types of things, I would definitely be listening.
Yeah, we'll definitely have more information on where we're at with this. We have a meeting on Monday with
Firm.
with Firm to try to get some more information on time frame and timelines. And big component of this is really going to be the ODOT.
Right.
Yeah. So
ODOT PG,
so
but
we can definitely work on things we can do.
And that's where we can help press buttons.
Absolutely.
Salem to help accelerate things.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have more information coming forward on this. Pedestrian trail, we have the floodplain study, which is phase 1 that we presented in a work session. We have that scheduled for November, December timeframe before completing the phase 2, 30% design. So B is that 30% design, which will be based off of phase A. Right.
and feasibility is just still pretty high level type stuff.
Correct. Sherwood broadband fiber to the home. North Skies began on section A, which is decided on the other side of 99. Build up connectivity neighborhoods. At the end of July, North Sky had installed 5,400 square feet. The city crews installed 1,692.
So what's our indicator for that?
We're still looking at a 2 to 2.5 year time frame. We are getting data and information right now, especially with North Skies, have more information and availability of additional crews and time. So it is something we're working on in terms of time frame, but we're looking to complete that as soon as possible.
You'll have a future update, you have an idea when North Sky will be done with their program.
And the YMCA is in negotiations. Infrastructure pillar 2 still. 2.6 is purchase and or replace antiquated software. We anticipate the financial system being a major software replacement. So it's a deliverable time of 2 to 3 years. Reconfigure existing software to adapt to current needs. Waiting on a vendor to get a quote and update the existing financial software. And then once the community development director is on board, anticipate making configuration change to the system.
Question on that. Are you guys looking at doing a more holistic study of software that the city needs? Because there's some danger in that just doing one system.
Systems. Yeah, it is really trying to take, and we're going to talk a little bit about the bill that is trying to take a more holistic approach, is trying to take all the different departments from community development to.
It's billing, it's workflow, it's purchase orders, it's invoices, all that stuff
And
travels.
making sure that all the systems can communicate together and work together.
Yeah. We can talk more about
Yeah.
that ones, but I get a little worried when we start targeting specific systems before we have.
Yeah.
Address remote workforce needs. We have a draft policy that's been completed and look to roll that out shortly. Implement plan for Parks Master Plan, Parks SDC methodology.
Yeah, I don't,
Okay.
no, I'll talk offline.
Okay. And then develop shovel-ready fiber expansion projects. Projects currently developing processes right now and projects that we've identified. Under livability and workability, pillar 3.1 is consider obtaining age friendly.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Before we move on, just an added note, it's like when the citizen engagement, you talk about, improving how we communicate and engage with citizens, and that ties into your infrastructure projects as well. Because, in terms of how all the systems, workflows, and things are integrated with our customers.
Consider obtaining an age-friendly city certification. Right now, there's a community survey that's out. Mine is just reaching these stats, getting feedback and information. 3.2 is design concepts for single-story flex building on lot in front of the arts building, with deliverable in the next 2 to 3 years. Design plan for Cedar Creek Trail amenities. Design work has started in July 2022, so we're on that. Public art and roundabouts. Staff has already begun working on identifying artwork that can go into the roundabouts and have active discussions.
On the Cedar Creek Trail, I met with the new government relations persons from Metro. I think I mentioned it to you earlier. We were in part of Jenna's coverage is parks and trails. But one of the things I mentioned to her,
Connection.
she's awesome. She came from LSC. But the reason I bring it up is there's been some conversations with Courtney Neuron and us. I think she had a high-level conversation with Metro. But if you look at that whole Tonquin Ice Age Trail plan system, there might be some opportunities to work with Metro to reconfigure that and save some money and help extend Cedar Creek Trail by not including a trail through the industrial areas. So we can talk more offline about that, but we might pursue that as well.
Should that help get our trail built faster?
Yep.
Festival Plaza is going out to bid in August. We anticipate awarding a contract, construction beginning. Create a public arts fund utilized for grants. That was done in the 22-23 budget. 3.7 is monitor housing, which again is an overall goal with 2 subsets. So subset A is developing and reform housing. It's something we haven't started. B is staff participating role making and monitoring track changes. We did this on your climate friendly issue with DLCDs. Our traffic working. Just along those kind of goals.
Transition to DLC.
Building workability, employee and city volunteer recognitions programs, appreciation programs. There are ongoing efforts through the volunteer program, through administration. We have plans for citywide barbecue and other such events, and we have a draft form plan for additional ways to identify and to recognize employees who go above and beyond. Police department has already rolled out one that we did in trial for the city of Bruce, which has been really successful. So we have programs like that to continue to roll out. And then programs to encourage innovation and creative solutions haven't started. Involve other communities and government partners in discussions of the importance of community wellness, mental health awareness. We do have a year program that we have draft one completed. This is one we have started in July. The project included monthly suggestions. First notice was employees was sent out in July and focused on financial health, which included things to help employees planning and retirement and financial well-being, including looking if they want to buy homes or want to save for college savings.
Is this one just for staff, or does it include like the senior center programs, Pearl and
Yeah,
the Circle of Friends?
yeah, we're including a wide range, and we're also looking for programs that we can share with the community as a whole. So half the programs we're looking at internally, and half of we're looking at being more external focused. So it's something we can share with the community as ways for this development.
Break those out into separate projects just so we can.
Internal and external,
Yeah. And I don't want to diminish the importance of meeting. I just think it's important to understand that each their kids are different in terms of.
Public safety is pillar 4, so funding the additional SRO. This was actually a time frame of 2 to 3 years, but we have had conversations with this new school superintendent. Looks like we have a lot of traction, potentially able to bring that forward this year. So it's something we're working on. Enhancing the visibility and police reserve program. I know Chief is looking at that as we get through some of our new hires right now and doing that. We haven't officially had any work started on that. Work with the school district on the Safe Routes to School program. Staff was able to reach out and we did have some success and wanted to have some conversations about that. So that was a nice update on that. It's a new world. So we are looking to begin more formal conversations, but we have started the process with expressing interest.
I met with a school board member last week and talked to them about that same program. If he's interested in hearing more about it as well. And as well as I met with the new superintendent 2 weeks ago and it was fresh. It was nice to hear that you're supporting some things.
Definitely a change over there. On 4.1, the funding of additional, so if I remember the plan that Chief put together, there was, we had hired, in 1 year, we hired an additional position for the SRO, but until it was approved, it would be used further. So are we now talking about funding an additional position on top of that? Or is that still part of the existing plan that's put together?
That's what we're trying to work through right now and where they will step up to the plate.
This is 50/50.
Programs to recruit and retain officers. There's a developing list of outreach methods, including word variety, online jobs, boards, creative job posting. I know that I has been working with Rebecca to look for ways to reach out and to try to promote our agency with finals. So identify complete infill for sidewalk improvements in ADA. The ADA transition plan RFP has been completed. One firm submitted for the project. Currently, staff is reviewing that. The consultant is looks to bring this to the council to authorize. Continue with public safety, develop an action plan for the county to improve safety on county-owned roads and Sherwood and UGB. We haven't formally started this process, but I did want to list the past for improvements on the road, which I consider part of this scope.
Can I just make a point for anyone listening? Because there's already a lot of work being done with the county and ODOT to do preliminary safety enhancement to the road, like speed reductions and stuff like that, while we pursue the longer term costly, physical upgrades to the road. So I think it's in ODOT's hands right now for some speed reduction changes. So that we are working on that. This, you're just referring to big capital projects.
Correct. Yeah, and more holistic plan, public safety.
Yeah.
To your point, we are currently in a process, 12-step process. We're about halfway through. We've submitted all of our data. ODOT has done their analysis and we're waiting for their feedback and their analysis on trying to do that. The recommendation from city staff was to reduce the speed. The data that we had really does justify that ask. So.
And the county is supporting us now.
So it's just at this point waiting for ODOT, which can't be time consuming.
We'll press some buttons.
Any questions?
Anybody have a question online?
None for me. I appreciate 4.7 or 4-7, whatever it is, the Baker Road one. That's good to see.
Yes. So foreshadowing, 4.7 is a change in the traffic safety committee to reduce speed limits and city limits. Baker Road city limits, ODOT approved reducing the speed to 35 miles per hour. City installed signs in August of 2022. The Southwest Elwood speed reduction request has been submitted. I was talking about right there. So we're just waiting on that. So the data I do think is pretty strong. It's just about the timing and how long they put on.
None for me.
Fiscal responsibilities, pillar 5, so 5.1, the pursue federal grants and monies. We did have a federal ask for four items in the grant. We are happy to announce that the federal funding proposal included one of those grants, which is I-Sage Drive, which which has Bruce incredibly excited. So
Don't tell me that.
Is that correct? Is that outside earmark?
No, it is earmarked.
That is the earmark. Okay.
Yeah, $3 million. They might not vote on it until November, sometime between now and November.
But it's in, that's the, that's,
Yes, but
It's in for the vote.
it's in for the vote, which is a huge
Great.
step.
Who do I need to?
for some state grants and monies, we did want to list one that we're pursuing right now, which is working on preliminary engineering for several broadband projects that we submitted for our state broadband. And then we'll be working, it's not listed on here with our obviously sales for the ask in 2023 fiscal year for legislative session. Complete banking RFP, the staff's currently working on the draft RFP, expected to go out to bid late this fall, early winter.
That's a thing. All right.
Yeah, it's
government.
it's a pretty significant process. Organizational assessment review on delivery of services, it's not something. Citizen engagement, create a new website platform and enhance social media. RFP for the new website is in the works. We anticipate the project going out to bid in October. So
I was excited to see that as I was going through our website today, and I was just trying to find the council goals that we voted on, so I just did Sherwood council goals, and it brings up last year's, but there is somewhere else on the website that brings up this year's, in two different places.
But you can talk about that one. The next one. I do have some concerns about it. I'm happy we're doing the website, don't get me wrong, but again, how is that going to integrate with all of the stuff behind the scenes system? So, you know, people can easily get on and like, what's the status of my permit? You know?
Brad, are you hearing all this?
He's probably heard it.
Are you asking?
Yeah.
He was asking about the RFP that we're looking about for the website, just having so. Go ahead.
Yeah, because what I want to make sure is when a citizen goes to our site, it's not just about finding information. It's about, you know, I need a backflow permit. I want to report a code compliance issue. You know, there's all these things we need to make it easier for our citizens to do. And the integration of that into those backend systems.
And more importantly, make this more efficient for
And
staff.
make it more efficient for staff, make it transparent for our community members, you know, like the simple question is, what's the status of my backflow permit? You know, things like that. I just want to make sure that we're connecting all those dots.
So, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds, but one of the things that we did with Sherwood broadband website is we bought it, I built it on a platform that's very open, lots of plugins for it, WordPress, you've probably heard of it. So there's a integration with Salesforce, so that when you type in an address, we're working on a piece that's like your database, and it's gonna say, hey, I see that you have service, go ahead and sign up. So that's the same level of integration that I'd like to do with our website. One of the products we looked at is got some integration with Infor, so taking some potholes and service requests, having somebody go type it in like you can today, but have it automatically go into the queue for public works.
There's, we can talk about it offline, but there's some GovTech platforms that are doing all that, or even toward government, including templates for all the promotions that I can share with you.
So there's a whole world out there. One of the things that we'll be doing is querying a lot of the other IT directors in the government space to see who's done a web RFP lately and what did you learn. So maybe you can start with RFQ first, or not RFQ with that, request for information. Let us know what's new in the world of web and government websites.
Yeah, so we can talk about that.
Taylor and Sean, let's go start with Taylor. And then
Yeah.
Sean.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I saw a number of packages that allow you to not have to boil the ocean here. So we could, we could say, hey, we'll just do one of the, the permits first, and then we'll, expand it to the next area or whatever. So I support that, making it better. That's the place where most of the community interacts with the city, and frankly, it's a little bit, embarrassing how out of date it is. So I appreciate your approach. Thanks.
It's always out
Yeah,
there.
and then I look at it from two aspects. I look at it from a citizen aspect on, if I'm searching for a sign code, can I go onto the city's website, type in sign code and go get a search result that gives me this Sherwood sign code easily? Today, it's not bad, but there's other things that are difficult to find. So there's the citizen engagement into the website, and then, I don't think Doug is in the room, so I'll be Doug today. I'm almost looking at the business owner engagement with the website, and I know that's something he's been hammering on forever. Is small businesses filing required documentation, licensing, whatever new business wants to come into town, can they use the website? And I think the last 2.5 years have shown us that we need to have a way that doesn't always have to be in person for everything. If in a pandemic, when the building shut down, when we don't have people physically in the building to be able to engage and help, business still needs to keep moving. And so we need to have a way that we can do those things, or we can file for licenses, update, whatever needs to be done from a small business owner standpoint through our website. And so I know that's something that Doug's been hammering around that for quite some time now. So it would be, I think, I don't even think I think it has to be almost expected for our new website, if we're going to build a new website, that we're at least at a baseline level of sophistication with that website.
And I can't emphasize this enough. We keep saying the word website. The website is just the presentation to the public, right? More importantly, it's what's right underneath that, how it integrates into the systems, with the workflow tools, with all those types of things. It's probably the most important piece of that structure.
I think we should skip 6.2 right now and go to 6.3, which is kind of utilize the modern communication tools. This is kind of identifying that we understand that a lot of this is going to come from the website, RFP.
I mean, yeah, I think, so, and they're the same tune of surveys, right? So lots of tools we can put that integrate with website to do surveying, and the goal would be that we create a survey on the website, and then we can push to social media as well as put it on the website. So if somebody wants to get it in their Facebook feed, they can get it that way. Interesting to maybe look at even some mobile messaging capabilities too, possibly. We're looking at that in the broadband side of things, where if you want to subscribe to SMS-based alerts, maybe that would be an integrated piece too. So I think what we've learned is we've got to go provide the same information through multiple channels. Not everybody wants to consume this information the same way.
So we'll jump back to 6.2, which is evaluate billing and broadband as it relates to customer service and workload of staff. So we are looking to integrate the utility bill that comes from the city and to have all the city services, including broadband, that is currently been designed. It is in for right now as we're doing the final background coding. We're looking to roll out a plan to announce to the community what changes are, how to read the bill. We're trying to simplify the bill, have everything on one, and we expect to have that rolled out in September.
Maybe send counselors, if you haven't shown counselors the
bill design. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
But good.
Citizen engagement, these are all ones that deliverable time, or two of them are deliverable timeframes of 2 to 3 years, 6.4 and 6.5. We haven't started on those. And develop a comprehensive approach to doing surveys that enable an organization to improve both strategy and execution. Not yet started in our overall discussion. Again, with citizen engagement, 6.7, continue to refine our marketing materials for industry. Deliverable timeframe is 2 to 3 years. Refine branding, again, that deliverable timeframe 2 to 3 years. Create a city statement on DEIA. We have a work session scheduled for 9 to 6 on that. Update hiring through processes. We'll follow up once we complete that. 6.9, and consider youth advisory or similar. Staff has done a review and reached out to neighboring communities and communities throughout the state to look for programs that they have for youth advisory and receive feedback and information.
What's the next phase for that part?
Is to really look at those programs and then come forward with a proposal been successful. Forest Grove, I think, was the one that we're currently looking at modeling, done through the city manager's office, working with the school district, where they engage with them.
Excellent, thank you.
That's the end of the council goals. So I guess feedback, questions, comments, concerns, what would you like to see next time? What information would be helpful as we move forward?
This is great. I like it. I like the color coding. Kind of where we're at.
And I told you this in our last meeting, I love this, I think it's a huge step forward. My only comment would be to add a column with due dates. And when I want to be really careful when I say that, I'm not implying that we're going to throw a hammer down the dates, not that, it's more about really clear communication as dates change, why they're changing, if there's things we can do to help those changes that we were having this conversation.
Yeah, I think it's good feedback. I think, first of all, I want to acknowledge staff who really helped put all this together. So I'm really relying on them for some of the data here, and feedback, we go back and make sure that things that's provide more specific information or dive deeper to provide those things.
I could say maybe a suggestion rather than an actual date is, well, you'd have to have multiple, like a 1 to 3 or 3 to 6, so we're not putting some exact date that.
It's just set goals, but it's just got to be understood that dates can change. And that's a really important communication that we need to get out when dates change.
Wasn't that in the original document that you sent us, it had the short-term?
Yes.
Yeah, even something simple like Q4 2023 or something like that, I mean, just some kind of expectation, I think, at minimum.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely materials and information we can continue to add and enhance. And we're working with Craig on something similar for public works projects so that we can have time frames across these things.
Yeah, because if the date's changing, if there's something we can do to help, we want to do to help. What we don't want to do is find out at the end. Right, so.
Yeah, and the document's only good, they read it, the next day things change. Good, bad, whatever. Changes.
Do you anticipate this kind of being a quarterly update or?
Yeah, I'd really like to do a quarterly update.
I
I
like
think normally you would wait till after the first 3 months, to have that happen. I wanted to get out front now, just to put something out there and see if we were kind of on the right thing, bring mine so that we come back in a few months. Whether work sessions or not, we can do it just as an update, but I think it's also good for the public to see where we're at on some of these items as well. So just to get a rhythm, what's good timing to make sure that we're communicating. Staff stays abreast of keeping our information updated. So eventually what I'd like to get is this just out there, it's updated on the new site, so anyone can look at it anytime to see where statuses are. That's just kind of, we're crawling right now.
That's great.
Awesome. Any other comments, questions?
I appreciate this. That's something we've been looking to have for a while now, and it's great to get some updates and feedback from you, Keith Campbell, and from staff on current status of this. And quite frankly, it's good for me personally to keep some of this stuff fresh in my head. Since it's been several months since we did this goal setting, it's nice to, kind of stir it a little bit and keep my brain focused on what we're looking to do this year, and beyond. So thanks.
Yeah, very good start.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, we have a 15-minute break.